Hi, I'm Lynn Eccles, and I'd like to tell you a story about my life. I was born deaf, and I was mainstreamed into the public school. They had an oral program there including lip reading, speech, and frustration. I did not connect. And in my family, all conversation was hard. I missed most of what they were talking about. One night we were watching TV, the show Little House on the Prairie. I remember being enthralled with it. My brother and sister were next to me, just as enthralled. And whenever they laughed at something, I asked them what was so funny, and they would just say, "Oh, it's nothing, it's not important," which left me feel really deflated. They didn't think I was worth the time for an explanation. I would go to my room and read books. There was really no communication in my family. When I started middle school, I was still in a mainstream program, and my parents said that I had to go to speech therapy, even though I didn't want it. I had to follow the rules, and I tried hard to talk. I had to endure all the frustration that comes with speech therapy. I only knew a little sign language. I learned when I was around 9. I picked it up gradually. In middle school, my signing wasn't fluent. It was more signing English, PSE, than anything else. And communication at home was the same as ever. I was always frustrated. I started to rebel. We quarreled. I was unhappy. My self-esteem was very low. But at school, I worked hard to make a connection. It became my escape. Being at home was the last place I wanted to be. When I started high school, my mother and I started an endless debate. My mother wanted me to go to St. Louis Park High School. There was a deaf and hard of hearing program there. And I didn't want to go there, but she insisted, which led to even more arguments. And finally, one day, I just decided to be assertive. I walked over to the Osseo High School, which was the high school in my hometown, and I met with the principal. And I asked if it would be possible for me to register for classes. He told me I could. And I said the only accommodation I needed was an interpreter, and he said that was fine. The principal could fingerspell, which was great because that really helped our communication. I registered for the classes I was interested in and then asked for a copy of my registration. I asked if I could have some kind of proof for my parents that I had the right to choose whatever school I wanted. And the principal informed me there was a law that would prove it. It was 507 or something, but it would be in the law books, and that I needed to check at the library. So I went to the library downtown, and I asked the librarian if she could find the law book that would prove Law 507. And she verified that she had the book, and while she led me to it, I remembered a former interpreter talking to me about that law. I finally found the law book, and she read the section that I was looking for, and it said that a child old enough to make a decision could choose his or her school. Parents didn't have control over that. That was exactly what I was looking for. I asked for a copy of that section of the law. So I had that and my registration papers. Then I walked the 11 blocks home and waited for my parents to get home from work. When they came in, my mother said she had registered me for St. Louis Park High School. I thought, "You did?" She gave me the form, and I looked it over. The courses she picked for me were mostly requirements, nothing I was interested in. I looked my mother straight in the eye, and I tore the papers in half. My mother looked at me in shock. I told her I didn't want to go there. And she told me it didn't matter what I did, the original papers were on file. Fuming, I proceeded to show her both the papers I had. She saw the Osseo High School registration first. She couldn't believe that I had done that without her agreeing to it. I told her to read the other paper about the law. She said I was forbidden from doing that, but I told her I had rights. She thought I couldn't make these decisions because I was deaf. I told her I was determined to go to Osseo High School regardless of her decision. The argument raged for almost 3 weeks. And the day before school started, both schools started the same day, Mom came to me to strike a deal. She asked if I was still determined to go to Osseo. I said yes. I still had an attitude because my mother and I never got along, ever. So she proposed the deal. I said, fine, what's the deal? She said, if you go to Osseo for the first quarter or semester, I can't remember which they had, if I passed all of my courses with a C or better, then I could go another quarter. But if I got a D plus or worse in any of the courses, any one course, I'd have to go to St. Louis Park. Well, I thought this was doable, so I agreed to her terms. I worked hard in all the classes. The interpreters they provided were good. Home was still a mess, but at school I plugged away. I was very involved. I could walk there. I enjoyed it. The one drawback was the lack of a social life. That's probably my one regret. I did have some hearing friends who tried to learn to sign. That was nice. Home life was a disaster as always. Well, I passed the first quarter, the second quarter, and the next quarter, and every quarter I never had a D plus or lower. My mother, not wanting to admit I was right, assumed I was the teacher's pet, which only led to more arguments. One day my mother asked me if I was determined to continue, and I said yes until graduation. She asked if I was sure I could succeed. I said I could. I believed in the power of positive thinking, but my mother was a naysayer. And I just said to her, watch me. 4 years later, I graduated. I had succeeded. And after that, I left for Gallaudet to start a new life. I cut all ties with my mother, and I never saw her again.